Hey, Bulls and Bears, we are back with another episode, back to document another day of the economic collapse. And we're seeing a slow motion collapse in the U.S. economy and throughout most of the world, actually. And yes, I'm bundled up today. As you can see, it got down into the 30s last night. And even in San Diego, we still get some frost and some ice in the mornings. And I even had to break out my ice scraper this morning. I might only use this 3 to 5 times a year, just on those mornings where it's wet enough to cause some ice and cold enough, scraping it off the windshield. But I am from Michigan, so I know all about shoveling snow, scraping ice, getting stuck in the snowbank. So I'd like to say I've paid my dues, but let's get into it. It's getting bad out there. And so what we're seeing is plunging savings rate throughout the population. Most people now have lower savings now than they did even during the financial crisis. Most people also at the same time have higher debt. We're at all-time high debt levels, both as a nation and as individuals, as people here, as consumers. Debt levels at all-time highs. Now, not for everybody. Some people are doing better than ever. If you're up there in the top 10, 20, 30%, you're more likely doing better now than you were previously, even a few years ago before the health crisis and all that. But one thing that comes with a deteriorating economy and an eroding purchasing power of the U.S. consumer, one thing that comes with that is rising crime. As poverty increases, as the cost of living gets so expensive for most people, poverty increases. What increases with poverty? Well, it's crime. Take a look at some of the photos that I got here from some viewers. And I'm not sure exactly who sent me this one, but look at this. We're now locking up laundry detergent. I've seen the pictures of certain items being locked up. A lot of beauty care items have been locked up, even in places like Walmart and things like that. So I was told that this is out of New York, and I'm going to guess it's New York City. And, how bad is the situation when you have to run chains through the detergent handles? You see all the chains there? So I guess you're going to have to get the lock and key there if you're an employee and somebody wants to buy some laundry detergent. And from what I see here, it used to be just items that were easier to steal. Like if you go to Walmart, the video games are behind, a glass case because people can pop it open and put it in their pocket. They could steal it more easily. But this is a big thing of laundry detergent. So obviously they're not worried about somebody just putting it in their back pocket because it's too big. They're worried about a lot of these smash and grabs and people coming in huge numbers and grabbing all the things as many things as they can, and then heading out. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So pretty soon it's going to be chains on everything, I guess, the way the economy's going, the way people are, suffering and not being able to afford basic necessities like laundry detergent now. And you could say, well, it's organized crime. They're grabbing the stuff so they can go resell it. They're not really that poor. They're not in poverty. Well, are they going to be reselling laundry detergent on eBay? I kind of doubt it. So to me, it looks like another sign of economic turmoil when you have to lock up stuff like this. Please let me know what you think down in the comments. Now let's move along here. Also, still on the topic of rising crime, poverty. They both go hand in hand, folks. And this is Chase. Chase is closing some ATMs early because of crime. And I didn't see, I wasn't told where this was at, but I'm going to guess it's one of the larger cities. That seems to be the trend, the larger cities, but it's not just cities. I was watching a crime show the other day, and they found a bunch of bodies out in the cornfield. So it's not just cities here that are seeing the rise in this type of thing here. Now the ATMs, they can't even stay open because so many people were, getting their money taken, likely after getting money out of the ATM. So the bank, with closing these ATMs earlier, I guess they figure they're playing their part in trying to prevent this type of crime from happening. All right, now let's transition a little bit here, and something happening out here in California. The state of California is once again, the state is having to defer improvement projects because of this huge projected budget deficit of about $22.5 billion. That's billion with a B. And this is after years of having a surplus. So California now is going to be taxing the wealthy, and they're going to be implementing, or they're talking about implementing, a new wealth tax. And it's likely going to be about another 1.5% of what they're saying is going to be taxing the ultra wealthy. But here's what's going to happen. Are the ultra wealthy going to stay in California because California is that great? Or are they just going to go to another state? Like we've seen so many companies now go to Texas, Tennessee, Arizona, just getting out of California. So I think it's going to just drive an exodus. I don't think it's going to fix the budget gap or the budget deficit. So then what are they going to do? They're going to come after the middle class. They're going to implement this gas tax, this pay per mile gas tax that most people can't afford. Most people are already living paycheck to paycheck, and they're going to be trying to get more out of these people that are barely squeezing by right now. All right, let's proceed here with some other news. It seems like we can't go a day now without another pretty big layoff announcement. This time it's 3M. 3M cutting 2,500 jobs as demand weakens, profits drop. Yes, the U.S. consumer being tapped out for the most part. We're just entering this, I think, tsunami of layoffs here that we're going to see here this year in 2023. It's already begun very drastically here in January. We're already in the tens of thousands of layoffs, and we're only a few weeks into the year here. And then what does this translate into? Well, all these job losses translate into more evictions, and there's discussions now of a nationwide eviction moratorium. We'll see how that proceeds here to protect people that really they can't pay their rent. Most people are going to be in a position where I think they can't pay their rent. We are going to see this tsunami also of vehicle repossessions. It's already increased, and it's already doubled even since last fall, the number of vehicles being repossessed. Of course, most of the major news outlets aren't reporting on that because they want you to think everything's fine. And they're also telling you all these jobs that are added from people having to take on second and third jobs and gig jobs and side hustles. So they're telling you, wow, look at all these jobs added. If the jobs added was such a great factor here, why is debt still exploding? And why do we have to have discussions of a nationwide moratorium? Why are profits dropping? Why are so many companies laying off people? If everything is really that good, if all these jobs are being created and everything's going fine. Folks, I was reading a story, an article about one of these big tech companies that laid off people, and it was another one that was thousands and thousands of people. And the particular person that the story kind of focused on was someone that was 8 months pregnant and just found out that they're losing their job. And of course, 8 months pregnant, I mean, you're way out there. You're not going to be going looking for another job. So, that person's going to have to get some unemployment benefits. I mean, when you're laid off, at least you do have unemployment benefits for a while. I think it's at least 6 months. I think it may vary state by state. I'm not actually sure. But so instead of maternity leave, now it's going to be getting unemployment. And will the unemployment last through how long that the new mother is going to need to be taken off time, to be a new mother? Now, one of the things that I've often spoken about here is be careful about what type of new ventures you take on, in this life, because you decide to start a family, all of a sudden you get laid off 8 months pregnant. There are cases where it's much worse, people that have, new family members that they have to take care of. And on top of that, they have medical issues and they get laid off. I mean, it's a whole mountain full of things, and each layoff has its own story. But the birth rate is actually dropping, and it's not dropping because people don't want kids. I mean, people want kids, but they're very uncertain about the times. They're very uncertain about the economy. And it's kind of weird. It's almost like, are people going to start basing their decisions to start a family on interest rates? Oh, look, honey, they're lowering interest rates. Let's start a family. Oh, no, they raised interest rates. The economy is going to go into a recession. Let's not start a family. It's just crazy that we have to sit there and think about the type of world we live in just based on these interest rate changes. But it is good that they raise interest rates, because otherwise the inflation would be even worse than what it is right now. The big problem is, or one of the big problems, there's too many problems to even talk about in this channel, but one of the big problems as far as the cost of living and inflation goes is they're not doing anything on the production side. They're throwing a bunch of money at the consumption side, money to the people to spend. For years, we had the buyer and lender of last resort out there buying all this debt, which enabled companies to buy back their own stock instead of paying off debt. But then that was less money that went to the workers, right? So that's why we've seen wages, not even come close to keeping up with the rising cost of living. And when companies buy back their own stock and use extra money for that, that's going to be less that gets invested into the company and into their employees. So when it comes to the business world, we have completely, not completely, but for the most part, ignored paying good wages to workers. And it's all about the stock price, the stock price, the stock price. The stock price needs to go up. What's the stock going to do? All the business channel talking about the stock price, the stock price. Not about what the workers are making, not about the wages, but that's part of the economy. And in a consumer economy where the consumer make up about 90%, or rather, no, I'm close, 70% of GDP, gross domestic product, is consumer spending, then more focus needs to be put on paying good enough wages. But no, if you look at all the business channels, it's all about the stock price and the dividends and investing. Everything's looked at as an investment standpoint, or from an investment standpoint, and not as the worker making enough money to actually survive and get by. And it's to the point now where a lot of workers are just checking out of the labor force. Like, what's the point? You're going to work hard, sometimes 2 jobs, 40 hours a week plus, and still barely make ends meet, never get ahead in the end, living paycheck to paycheck. And people in debt all the way up until their 60s, 70s, 80s. And there's actually a funny meme, I think it's funny, a meme that I saw just the other day that kind of addresses that topic there, being in debt until you're 40, 50, 60, 70 and beyond. And here's the meme right here. And it actually would be funnier if there wasn't so much truth to it here. But what it says here, for those that are just listening and not watching: finally debt free, time to start living. And it looks like a lady that's at least 100 years old here behind the wheel of a sports car or something. And if people actually waited until they were debt free to start living, I mean, you might see a lot more situations like this. So what do people do? They just keep on living. They just keep on going through life in debt, because that has become the new normal, just being in debt. It's no longer looked at as even a negative thing, because just most people are in it. And I don't think people look at it as a positive thing, but it's not something that is a game changer, because most people are just accustomed now to just being in debt forever for the most part. And even when you're out of debt, or when you pay off your debt, that's still not even a valid term, because even when things are paid off, you still have to keep paying on them just to keep them. Look at property, look at your vehicle. You have all these fees and things you have to keep paying on just to keep it, not just to keep it operational, but just to keep it in general. And at my job, I'm hearing a lot more stories now of family moving back in together, both younger people moving back in with their parents, but then on the other hand, or the flip side of it, older parents moving back in with their kids. I shouldn't say moving back in, but moving in with their kids. And a lot of times the kids don't have the extra room. So you have a parent now basically using the living room as a bedroom, and it can make, for a kind of a weird situation. I mean, we want to be there for our families, but my house, for example, the reason I do these videos in the garage here is because I don't have an extra bedroom to set up, cameras in and stuff like that, because they're all occupied by family members. And I couldn't imagine if one of my parents now had to move in with me, where would they go? They might be in the living room, or who knows where they'd be, maybe out here in the garage, even though it's kind of cold. I would actually sleep in the garage before I'd make my parents sleep out here. But you know what I'm saying? A lot of people just don't have enough room. And, the cost of housing is already so expensive. People don't have that extra bedroom or 2 bedrooms to take on new roommates or relatives. Folks, let's wrap it up here with more good news. I think it's good news. Oil around $80. It bounced between about 79 and 82 today, ended up around $80. And remember last summer when we were up over $120 a barrel, $122 around there, it was getting pretty scary. Now, of course, we're in the winter and demand is lower, so that could be a big part of it. But if we look back at previous winters, let's go back 5 years on the chart here. We're still much higher than we've been over the past 5 years, over several different winters. So it doesn't look like we're out of the woods yet. In fact, a lot of people are predicting this summer going even higher than what we did last summer. So we're talking 140, 150, 160. And with Saudi Arabia now, the world's largest oil exporter, looking to trade outside of the dollar, what's going to happen now to the price of oil in dollars? And 2023, my guess is we're going to see new all-time highs in oil. Please let me know what you think down in the comments. We've also are running pretty low on the strategic reserves, not running out, but running pretty low. And that could be part of the reason why it hasn't spiked even higher. But even looking back over 5 years, this is the highest winter for oil than we've seen in many years. Or are consumers so strapped that we're going to see a big drop off in demand, which would then have the price subdued and stay lower? Please let me know what you think down below. I see new all-time highs in oil this summer. But it depends on how much debt gets extended, how much credit gets extended to people. That way they can go take vacations and still fill up their vehicles and RVs with oil that they or with gas rather, with gas made from oil, but fill up their vehicles with gas that they normally couldn't afford. Are the credit card companies going to allow this to continue with all this debt now that late payments are increasing? So it's going to be a very interesting time here to sit and watch this. In 2023, a lot of things are converging, coming together at the same time. The debt, the defaults are starting to increase, bankruptcies starting to increase, foreclosures, evictions, you name it. So it's going to be very interesting, but stay tuned to this channel. We'll keep you on top of things. And I want to wrap it up with a few thank yous to some supporters of this channel. Sue Oni, or O-N-Y, Sue Oni, thank you very much for your kind, generous support. Mike S., thank you very much. And WYTM, thank you very much. It is support like yours that keeps this channel operational and keeps us alive. Thank you all very much. And thanks everybody for being here, helping us out. Big love. Let me know what you think down in comments. Price of oil, new all-time highs, or are we going to see the consumer completely collapse and therefore demand collapse for oil? Therefore, the prices are going to stay low. Interesting times, folks. Hope you're well. Big love. Talk to you very soon. Bye for now. Peace.